Norman
Good morning.
is able to speak with the dead.
How's it hanging?
Haven't heard that one before.
You see ghosts like all the time?
But when his small town comes under siege by zombies, once quiet Norman snaps into action.
This is crazy.
Do I look crazy to you?
Along with some unlikely allies,
Oh yeah.
Norman does battle against a ghoulish army in Paranorman.
The makers of Coraline, Leica Studios, have a new stop-motion animated feature coming out called Paranorman. I'm Greg, and I'm joined by a pair of reviewers, Liz and Salim. We've just seen it. What do you think?
I liked it a lot.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was really good.
great.
Me too.
I really want to start by talking about the slick stop-motion animation. It was great, very similar to Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas. However, it's not as jarringly creepy. You have some moments that really kind of jump out at you, but it doesn't really kind of stick in your mind, you know, with the buttons over the eyes and stuff like that.
It's a warm film. It invites you to watch it and be excited in it. It's not distancing in that way.
And it's really just a wonderful world that these artists have created, these characters and this little town that they have. And it's really unique because it has this whole witch mythology, and it really has this whole idea of a world and a city that's kind of existed before this movie has started.
I mean, I have to disagree a little bit. I mean, I actually think that the source material is a little bit cliche. Basically, we have the animated version of the movie Heart and Soul starring Robert Downey Jr. that no one apparently has seen but me, but I love it. And then you have the incorporation of the Salem witch trials, which I always think is really goofy because the Salem witch trials is all about discrimination against, you know, marginal characters in society, and it's not really about witches and the supernatural. But then all these goofy horror films always take up and co-opt that idea and turn it into, yes, there were Salem witches, and they're crazy.
But I feel like a lot of this movie is about bullying and about that
That's
kind of
true.
Even to a bigger degree, this movie is a meta version of horror films. It's really a kid's horror movie with horror elements that the adults will be able to identify and enjoy. And I think because of that, it's going to have all these, Salem witch trial, all these cliches on purpose, so that people are like, oh, okay, they actually know what they're doing. They know what came before.
But even though I did think that the ideas were cliche, I think the incorporation of the bully themes and the witches and the supernatural, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
Well, the problem I think with doing a horror comedy is that you have to somehow tell the audience that the horror isn't that scary so that they'll laugh about it. And I think one way to do that is to reference hundreds of different horror tropes and cliches so that you recognize it as a fictional movie and you don't get sucked in that way.
I like the majority of this film, but there's a part where we have zombies, and it actually is the slow part of the movie.
It is.
You know,
it hits a little.
It hits a little bit of a,
funny,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, and it's because it gets a little bit predictable when you start seeing the zombies. You kind of maybe understand what they're doing, you know, before maybe the rest of the audience does, which is okay because I feel like it ends in such a way that it's very satisfying, and you realize that it's not a zombie movie.
I feel like the first act is like a masterclass in screenwriting. It's so good at setting up not only the main character's sort of wants and needs, but all of these characters with these individual personalities. And yes, they sort of are based on horror movie cliches, but I feel like they nail the cliches in a way that's very self-aware.
Let's talk about the actors a little bit, the people who do the voice acting for these characters.
Tucker Brizzy. I love him.
So good.
He plays the
So
sort of sidekick
He plays
character.
Neil.
Neil, the little chunky,
Redheaded
fat
kid.
cheeks, who just was
Yeah.
hilarious
And
in
if you
every
look him up
line.
online, he looks exactly
Really?
like Neil.
Oh,
It's
really?
amazing.
That's
Little,
perfect.
Cute little.
Well, they do the great sort of the Shaggy trick, which is that he's very cowardly, and yet we love him for that sort of cowardice.
And yet he's also very sincere and just wanting to be Norman's friend.
Norman, wait up. I like to be alone. So do I. Let's do it together.
I thought the animation style was very unique and very interesting. It was just fun to watch, and you're right, all of the characters had just great character design. They seemed so fresh and lively.
And I really was impressed by, at the end of the film, there were a lot of actors that were doing the voice acting that I couldn't tell it was them until, you know, at the end of the movie. We have Casey Affleck, who plays the buff numbskull, and then we have Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who plays McLovin, who he plays a bully.
Fairy tale?
Ooh, what you got there, Geekula?
No, give it back.
Oh, can't wait to see everybody's faces when they hear about this
No,
one.
don't.
And the movie is great about using sort of celebrities or famous actors, but not using them for their celebrity voices. I feel like everyone in this movie is actually voice acting.
Please spare my...
I can see ghosts too.
Never told you that, did they?
And they use a lot of CG and, you know, digital effects to loosen up the stop motion. You're not like, oh, that's the effect shot. It's a very smooth, consistent style the entire time.
Read from the book at the spot the witch was buried.
Also in the marketing, it uses Donovan's Season of the Witch, which I think is a very hip song.
What song is that?
It's a song that Donovan wrote in the 60s, and she's using it as an example of
Who's
hip
Donovan?
marketing.
Sunshine Superman.
Who's that?
Not hip.
He's so hip.
That's for the parents who are coming and taking the kids.
Or the 27-year-old girls who like Donovan.
Donovan fans, check out this movie.
But I mean, it markets itself to actually what I think is the hipster crowd quite well.
And it's really important for horror comedies to sort of function simultaneously as horror and comedy.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples is little Neil. He's just waiting outside of the window.
Ah! You wanna play some hockey?
Paranorman, really some funny characters, it's great animation, and a great meta horror film for the kids. See it.
Paranorman is a great horror comedy for kids and adults. Definite see it.
Paranorman, good for kids, adults, and hipsters. See it.
Cheers.
There.
I want to listen to some Donovan.
So he's okay?
Not exactly.
I don't understand.
I just like this one a lot better.
It's like saying that Finding Nemo is better than Jaws.